The big fish has finally dropped. Vegas, to no surprise, especially after St. Louis signed Krug, has signed Alex Pietrangelo to a 7-year deal worth AAV of $8.8 million. There is, I believe there's a no-trade clause attached to that as well. Wow, 30-year-old. Now, Vegas, before we jump into Pietrangelo, some of his stats and so forth, they got a bit of an issue here because they're around $7 million over the cap right now. So they're going to have to make some moves. And we're going to dive deeper into that just in a second. Let's just go over Pietrangelo's stats and stuff real quickly here. Now, he's a right shot defenseman, 6'3", 210 pounds. As I mentioned, he's 30 years old. Now, last year in 70 games for St. Louis, 16 goals, 52 points, plus 11 during the regular season. Playoffs, in 9 games, he had 1 goal, 6 points. He's a 0 in the plus-minus category. He's always putting up usually between 40 to 50 points-ish a season. Now, in last year's playoffs, in 26 games, he had 3 goals and 19 points and was a plus 5. Now that he got a bit more of rest this season after St. Louis was eliminated so early against Vancouver, especially at this ripe age, maybe he'll be more prepared. Vegas, of course, desperately needed a right shot defenseman, right? In the playoffs, as we all know, they only had one true shot right shooter, and that was White Cloud. And he was, he's very young on the bottom pairing. So this fixes a big issue for them, obviously, and they're primed to take another run at the Cup. They've been contenders since they surprised everybody in the first year. But now, what does Vegas do, right? Being $7 million, over. Now we're all going to automatically look and talk about Flurry. Their goaltender, who's now 35 years old and is making $7 million over the next 2 seasons. He does have a modified no-trade clause. He has a 10-team no-trade list attached to that. But you would think they'd have to at least take some money back if they trade him. And I'm thinking anywhere between $1.5 to $2.5 million, depending what comes the other way, right? And now that, because of the cap being stagnant and everything, and a lot of the signings have been, a lot of teams' cap space has been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, that's going to be even more difficult. That means they might have to eat more. So it can't just be Flurry going out the door. Of course, they signed Robin Lehner, as you remember, a little while back to a 5-year deal for $5 million over 5 years at age 29. Who else might be moving out the door? Now, the rumor mill has been talking about Nate Schmidt possibly being traded somewhere. He's a left shot D, 29-year-old, also can play the right side. He is making just under $6 million over the next 5 years. So that would free up some space as well. After that, there's Alex Martinez, who they just traded for. I don't think they'll trade him. I think we have to look at the forward bunch here. And I'll throw out a couple names. There is Thomas Nosek, but he's only signed for 1 more year at $1.25 million. He's 28 years old. He plays his depth center / winger spot there. But they need more, right? And, might they think of trading Alex Tuch? Because he had a really good playoffs. Maybe you try and sell high on this guy right now. Now, it's a bit of a shame because he's only 24 years old, right? But he's signed for the next 6 years at just at $4.750 million. So that might be a possibility as well. This in the regular season in 42 games, he only had 8 goals and 17 points. But in 20 playoff games for Vegas just passed, he had 8 goals, 12 points, was a plus 5. And last season in 2018-19, he had 20 goals. So maybe this is the time, maybe the Devils or the Buffalo Sabres or even the Colorado Avalanche might come calling. We shall see. That's kind of another video, isn't it? So there you have it. There is some youngsters who might be able to come in and replace some of these players I just mentioned, depending on the position, of course. Starting with the forwards, I'm looking at the prospect list here. Jack Dugan, he's a left winger. He's about 21, 22 years old, 6'2". He might be able to jump in next season and fill a role. There's also centerman, 21-year-old Lucas Elvins. Both these guys are number 2 and 3 on their prospect list, by the way, ranked by the Hockey News. He could step in. Both these players have been playing, Elvins especially has been playing in the AHL. So he could really be ready to jump in and fill a spot. And then defensemen, I'm looking at 2 different players here. Jimmy Schultz, he's 24, 6'1", 24, 25. Been playing in the NHL. He's a left shot. He could jump in. He's got a strong work ethic. There's also Dylan Coogan, a right shot. He's about 22 years old. Also been playing in the AHL. He had 23 points last season. Schultz had 21. So both these guys might be able to come in and fill a hole depending on who moves out the door and who they trade. So as I mentioned, they're about $7 million or so over the cap right now. They got to figure that out, and it's probably just not one player. I would love to hear from you, what you have to think about this. Who might be moving out the door? How big of an impact Pietrangelo will make? I think that's kind of obvious, but especially you Vegas fans, I'd like to hear from you too about this, especially when it comes to what prospects you think might be able to jump in with the big club. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to each other out there. Happy Thanksgiving to my Canadian brothers, and I'll see you soon.